Hello everyone, and welcome to this peek inside the box of the brand new, and by brand new I do mean 100% new tooling, of the Hobby Boss 1/48 scale Blohm Voss BV141. Once again kindly supplied by Aeroscale, which is part of the kit maker network. As I say, this is a brand new tooling. There's that number again, 2014. Of what is arguably one of the weirder looking things to come out of the war, but apparently a very, very stable platform, something to do with the gondola cockpit cancelling out the torque of the propeller because it's offset, which did make it very stable and manoeuvrable. But I don't think these things went into full-scale production, because I think the engines were the same engines that the Focke-Wulf 190 were using, and they were in greater demand for that aircraft rather than this somewhat odd looking thing. It will build into a very impressive looking little, well not little, with a wingspan of 365mm and a length of 284mm. That's a fair old size, but let's have a look and see just exactly what it is we get here. Well, a rather hefty looking sprue on the top here, which has the wings, and only the wings, which are a fair old size as well. Let's cut the bag open and see just exactly what we're getting. We have a cut on the inside of the seam and not the outside. Let's see. Grey plastic, which is always a good thing, isn't it? Nice satin finish. I don't see any rivet detail, but some incredibly finely engraved panel lines. We do have some, well, quite a bit of wheel well detail. No hydraulic lines or anything, but then I'll have to do some research just to see exactly what went on in the wheel well of a Blohm Voss BV141. They may be 100% accurate, who knows. I do notice that they are similar to Trumpeter, because it's the same thing. The sprue gates are actually on the mating surfaces, not on the exterior surfaces. Now, each to their own, but I'm not terribly keen on this, because you really have to get that thing off 100% accurate. If you screw up a wee bit here, in fact generally what you would do if it was attaching to the actual exterior surface, you leave a little bit, like, you know, attached so that you can sand it down to the surface. Here you have to be really careful. If you leave too much, it won't mate. If you take too much, you have to fill. So that I know some of them do it. Well, granted, these are on mating surfaces anyway. So, but yeah, look. I mean, when you look at the size of those wings, they're compared to my hand, they're a fair old size. So this will have some stature on the bench, as it were, or straight into the decal sheet here. Do we get? Yes, we do. We have, well, half swastikas, but at least they're present. Let me just cut this back open, because it looks like we have some kind of instrument detail as well. I'd normally leave the decals to last, but I'm just taking them in the order that I find them. Very, very, very fine. There is a bit of gloss. This tissue paper seems to have left a slight marking. I don't know if you're going to be able to see there. There, look, see that on the main cross there? But once there's a coat of matte over there, I don't think it will really matter. Yeah, there is some instrument detail here. There's some dials here, a radio box by the looks of things, a side console. But yes, it appears that we're only getting 2 variants. No stencil data, but not that I'm bothered by that. I'm not a particular big fan of stencil data. I'll leave the paperwork until last, but let's have a look at the other sprues, shall we? Here we have the fuselage and what appears to be some cockpit components. Okay. My knife's broken. That's why it's not working. Bad workman always blames his tools. Very, very plain skin on the fuselage. I don't see any panel line detail. Again, I don't know how this thing was constructed, so this could be more accurate than I'm letting on. But there are some very fine details here, some access panels and whatnot. I was looking for interior detail there, but obviously there wouldn't be because there wasn't any interior. Cockpit floor looks nicely detailed, as you can see there, and here are some of the cockpit components. Here we have some, looks like an oxygen tank, hoses. Yeah, there's some very fine detail on these components here. There's the, well I'm saying it's a radio box. The tricky thing here is that some of these decals are obviously, for example, this decal here is designed to fit over here. Now it's presumably an option, excuse me, whilst the typhoon goes by, but then by now you're kind of familiar with it anyway. So as I say, this is probably an option rather than painting it yourself. Now I'll go down the painting route, preferably, but it tends to be more. I tend to find decals of instrumentation kind of cartoonish, so I may opt not to use these. For example, this decal here looks like it will fit over this component here. The tricky part is that you then have to either cut away the raised detail or hope that your setting solution will suck it down so that it embosses itself through the decal, which is not the, I don't think, the best way to go about these sort of things. So I'll have a look online, see what I can find in the way of information on how the instrumentation looked, and maybe have a go at painting it myself. But other than that, there is one more main sprue, which obviously is the engines, propellers and wheels. And the engine, the radial engine does have pushrod detail on it, obviously cooling fin detail, and the wheels have a nice tread pattern on them. Needless to say, not an ounce of flash. I'm just, as I'm holding this up to the light source that I have behind the camera, these are the wheel covers, and a good thing is that I can actually see that they're quite thin. I mean, considerably thin, because there's a lot of light getting through them, which is a good thing, because on wheel covers obviously they're just thin sheets of metal, which is generally quite difficult to represent in plastic. But the machine guns look nicely detailed. I don't think there would be any need to replace these with anything. I don't know if there's any aftermarket sets available for this photo etch or resin. I mean, it is relatively new. I think it came out in April of this year. Interesting thing, the wheel struts actually have moulded on brake lines, and they're very fine, to the point that I don't think you could really improve on that. And they do go around the actual wheel, the arch as it were, and disappear inside. So that is a very welcome touch from Hobby Boss, because of late I have actually been leaving brake lines off, just leaving the wheel struts as they came in the box. This is a very nice touch. I like that a lot. I wish, hopefully, other manufacturers will take note of this, because how difficult really is it? I mean, if they can do fine detail work like this, or cooling fin detail on an engine, how much harder is it to do a brake line on a wheel strut? Case in point, do we? No, we don't. The seat is completely bare, no harnesses whatsoever, so I'll source myself a set of 1/48 scale harnesses. In fact, Edward do these new super fabric ones. I know they do Luftwaffe ones in 1/48 scale, because they were promoting them along with their G6 109. So I think I might treat myself to a set of those for this one. But this being the Blohm Voss BV141, it's what lies in these bags that I think we really want to see. In particular, this bag here, because rather than have small sections of canopy, it appears that Hobby Boss have gone for a larger section that seems to incorporate some actual, fuselage wall, as it were. At least I think. Let's have a look. Wow. Oh, that is gorgeous. There's a lot of... The satin areas are obviously not canopy. They're fuselage, or whatever you would call it, on the gondola. But as you can see here, the canopy obviously fits down to the wing root itself. But this area here is metal, not clear. But I am hoping nay, praying that Edward have got their act together and have produced a die-cut mask for this thing, because it will be, quite frankly, an absolute nightmare to mask all these tiny, tiny little, or separate, they're not tiny, it's just there's an awful lot of them, that's all. But I do like the idea that this wasn't a separate part from this part, and that this part didn't finish here. It's one piece, which certainly makes attaching a lot easier, because if you don't get a good canopy to fuselage join, filling it is an absolute nightmare, for obvious reasons. What do we get in this one? Beautifully packaged, as you can see. Each canopy section comes individually bagged and individually wrapped in a foam protective covering. Another part of the canopy, again with a lot of non-transparent surface area, but at least if this doesn't fit perfectly, there's no trouble to get a sander or to get filler in there and to make it blend in properly. Some panel line detail on it as well, some access panels. Lovely and clear. There certainly doesn't seem to be much in the way of distortion. Let me just get a piece of the instructions. No, there's no, or there is very, very little lensing taking place there that I can see. So there's going to be a lot on display inside there, because there's a lot of clear. Let's have a look, see what's in this one. This is wonderful, look at this. Every piece individually wrapped. I think it's time to change this blade, what do you reckon? It's a tail cone. Again, look how clear that is. That is wonderful. On a piece of clear styrene of that particular shape and nature, it's very, very difficult to get the optics right, but they've done a very, very good job here. It isn't perfect. And the last part, there's a lot of clear. Oh, come on, Edward, please, please tell me you're making a canopy mask for this as I speak. Ah, it's the access windows, or access hatches. Now that's, good grief, you know what, I didn't even notice that. That shows you how good this canopy is, that shows you how clear the other parts are, that I didn't realise that these were actually open. That one's open, that one's open, that one's open, and that one's open. I didn't even see that. Well, there you go. That's how good that clear, oh yeah, now you can see. You probably saw it before I did. So that's the access pieces for this, and there's also, I can see, an instrument panel. I noticed on the instructions that we did get, sorry, not instructions, on the decal sheet, that we did get some individual, oh maybe they're not, maybe that is one dot. Huh, okay. So that obviously goes with the instrument panel, which is very basic as instrument panels go. There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dials on it. But again, beautifully clear. No lensing whatsoever. Well, there is, I'm not saying it. So the instructions, typical Hobby Boss trumpeter format. Again, not an awful lot of parts, 3 sprues with basically just what you need. The cockpit does look like it's going to build into a fairly nice looking little office. Yeah, I think we'll paint the console detail, because there does look like there's other components that'll go in there. It'll look a bit flat if it's a decal. I must admit, I do like larger companies like Hobby Boss, Trumpeter, obviously Revell, Fix, these kind of guys, where you get locating pins. I don't like the vagueness of some of the other manufacturers that just have an arrow telling you that the component goes somewhere about here. I do like there to be actual definite contact points, and it does look like that we have a lot of these now. It looks fairly much like, well, once we get through the cockpit stage, like the Whirlwind, progress will be rather rapid, as there's very little going on here. And then we're onto the engine, and Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your auntie. We're pretty much at the final stages. Painting, we have either a splinter pattern, which is RLM02 grey and the RLM71 dark green with the RLM65 light blue, fairly straightforward Luftwaffe colours, or we have the all over RLM02, which of the two I think I do prefer the splinter pattern, although obviously I had a wee bit of interest, and dead easy to mask because it's all straight lines, which is good, which I do like. But as you can see, the canopy is going to take some time. The way I do it is I don't try and cut one piece for it. I'll cut a piece to fill the one corner, the next corner, the next corner, the next corner, and then join all them up and fill out the middle. Well, there you go. Looking forward to getting started on this because it's been some time since I've actually done a Luftwaffe. In fact, other than the small Stuka, the only other Luftwaffe kit I've built was the big Messerschmitt. So that kind of leaves a big gaping hole in my collection in terms of German aviation hardware, so this kit will make a very welcome addition to the display cabinet, I think. Thanks for watching folks, and we'll see you again soon.